Oh, man. Look out for sugar gliders. They're the man-eaters of the night. Holy smokes! This is COFOH Live Undead. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by Guillermo Xegarra. Woo!
Something on my face.
Guillermo, how are you, sir?
Daniel, how's it going, man?
Good. Yeah, thanks for joining me on here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think the last time I saw you, we hung out at the Melvins.
Yeah, before the pandemic, it feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it's super weird. But since then, you've become a comic book writer.
I have. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm super proud of you. I can't wait to hear about your adventures in sequential storytelling. But yeah, tell everybody at home a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and how you got into comic book writing.
I was born in Queens, lived there till I was really young, moved to New Jersey, and got into comics. There used to be a drugstore right down the street from me, and they had the comics that they seem to always have were Star Wars, Conan, and Spider-Man. So that kind of got me started. Then for a little while, I kind of thought I was too cool, and then I went through like the whole like the whole like punk rock metal like emo 80s mullet head thing.
Yeah.
And then like found the X-Men and related to that sense of alienation, got back into it, stopped again, and then got back into it like in the early 2000s. I found like Preacher and Warren Ellis and what those guys were doing. I got really into Grant Morrison's Invisibles and decided I was going to never stop like with comics again. If not necessarily reading them, then maybe writing them, and hopefully both as much as possible.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. Now you did a book, I think a couple years ago with Denver Pop Culture Classroom, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I did a bunch of comics in Pop Culture Classroom under a different name.
Nice.
Under my real name, whatever reality is. It seems like it's pretty malleable these days. But yeah, under my name, they were educational comics. They were great projects. That's I was lucky enough to kind of learn about writing comics doing those. Like they were 2 pages, cool. 5 panels a page. I think it was like 50, no more than 50 words a panel. We had budgets and deadlines to work with, and yeah, it was just a great experience. And the projects that we were given and that we were able to pitch were really great. And that's where I met Matt, the guy that essentially came up with Milagro and the character and the idea and everything.
Yeah, because you guys have been collaborating on obviously previous projects, but this one, and this is something that he came up with and came to you to work on.
Matt came up with the character Milagro. Milagro means miracle in Spanish.
Oh, cool.
I think there's like a tequila or something now that's called Milagro, but he came up with the idea with the character. I think it might have been 2003, 2007. It was sometime in the early 2000s.
Oh, wow.
And he just had some basic ideas. He didn't want him to talk.
Okay.
He wanted it to take place in Mexico.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of put it in the back burner and he threw the idea out. And I thought it was great. And he, essentially he gave me maybe like 7 prompts, he wanted like a death in the ring. He wanted a gory, like head splatter kind of ending at the end of like the first arc, the first chapter. he had like some ideas like with roses, red. There were some basic like prompts that he gave me, and then everything else is up to me. He really just let me go.
Nice.
Yeah.
So was it up to you to come up with the story? You know, what is Milagro initially about?
So, Matt describes it really well. It's about a wrestler, but it's not a wrestling comic.
Okay.
Yeah. Without giving too much away,
Yeah.
it's a disgraced luchador. He kills his mentor in the ring, and he ends up becoming homeless and goes on the streets and is basically self-exile for years. He comes back to his town because his town is under attack by a cartel that wants to use it for drug trade, and there's history between the town and some of the characters and this gang that wants to trade drugs. And there's a lot of street violence. There's a mythology behind it that isn't really, it's hinted at but not explained. A lot of like early Japanese mixed martial arts spawned from pro wrestling, like stiff style pro wrestling that looked like real fights. They had real submission holds, real locks and everything, and one of the things that I allude to is that in my world that happened in Mexico with lucha libre. So there's like this kind of weird like crossover thing, and that ends up in like some like street brawls and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds so cool. And yeah, you guys collaborated with artist Ross Radke. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about him and how he came to the project?
Wow. So Matt met Ross. I think Matt met Ross in Portland, and it used to be called the Hellboy Book Club podcast, and they recently changed the name. And they met there, they hit it off. They always talked about doing a project. The scheduling wasn't right. I initially called Matt out of the blue because there was another thing that I wanted to work on. I found this really, really good artist. I knew, Bernard Barrett. He's never done comic book art, but he's just a really good artist. And he just drew up some things. I wanted Matt's opinion. Matt seemed to really like it, and we just started talking a little bit. What are you doing? How you been? Blah, blah, blah. I hadn't talked to you in a while. And I was like, hey, by the way, if you want to do Milagro, let me know. And he's like, yeah, let me see what Ross is doing. Ross was like in between projects, and it's pretty crazy because Matt sent him the idea. And I think he might have, I don't know if he's even sent him the script, but I think he just sent him the idea. And like within an hour, Ross came up with like sketches that are in the back of the book. And I mean, like the guy just is a machine, he's incredible. Yeah, it was like being in a band with a guy who's like some virtuoso guitar player that can shred like these ridiculous guitar solos.
Yeah.
It's like that's what it was like working with that guy. There's a lot of technical fighting moves, right? I fed Ross like I have all these like fighting manuals from like the early 1900s and like 1950s or whatever on like boxing and like wrestling and all this stuff, right? And I would feed him those, and then I would send him like clips from YouTube videos. Some of the fights have moves, classic moves in like MMA matches.
Ooh.
And I'd send him those moves, right? And I don't think he's trained any martial arts. He may not have known what like a roundhouse kick was, for all I know. He probably didn't know what a Boston Crab was. And he just nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. The guy is just a monster, man.
Yeah, let me throw up the cover art here.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is the image online that really grabbed my attention. It's like, wow, this is a gorgeous cover.
Yeah.
And this is Ross's work.
He just, I don't know. He that just appeared one day. Nice. And like, I was like, whoa, that's when it hit me.
Yeah.
Like, wow. Yeah. That, I think, the look on his face pretty much gives you an idea of what else is in there.
Right. You're in for some intense time. Yeah, and to me, like, like it harkens back to, like, with lucha libres, harkens back to like for me the like late 1960s and 70s, Mexican exploitation, wrestling films.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'd have like a supernatural element and stuff. I'm like, oh my god, Mo's working on this. This is going to be amazing.
Milagro deliberately avoided a lot of that. We didn't really go supernatural.
Yeah.
We kept it pretty much. I mean, like it's grounded in reality to a degree that it's like possible. We're not having anybody like a leap a tall building in a single bound or anything like that.
Yeah.
And one of the things too that we kind of cover a lot is poverty.
Okay.
The comic takes place in Iztapalapa, Mexico, and it's one of the poorest districts in Mexico, in Mexico City.
Mm.
And that was like an important thing. Like you don't hear a lot about, like even in comics, right? It's always like Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark, like these billionaires, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear quite as much about poor people, and you certainly don't hear about poor people outside of the States.
Right.
So we wanted to have some of that. There's some pretty serious, themes about redemption.
Mm.
There were definitely some things that we wanted to hit on, and we absolutely wanted to those like old luchador movies and comics, they were almost like Scooby-Doo episodes or something.
Yeah, very much.
They're goofy.
Yeah.
This was not. There's elements here, there's hopefully deeper elements. Hopefully I didn't try to bite off more than I could chew with that, but we tried, and we went for it, and we'll see what people think.
Yeah, you seem to be having a good response. Before we went live, you mentioned it's like, holy crap, we're almost selling out.
Yeah. No, we've gotten a really positive response. Yeah. No, I'm when we started this, I've never done anything like this. I did the short comics for Pop Culture Classroom with Matt. Right. I've had a couple like short stories published here and there, but I've never done anything like this.
Yeah, that's cool. You were mentioning some of the action sequences and stuff. Yeah, here's some of the interior art. I just love how gestural Ross's work is, and it's I think like if we hop back to
the German suplex.
Yeah, I mean that is just classic.
I forgot to put. I made this really hard for him because I just said suplex.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a suplex, and it was like, well, no, I didn't say German suplex where he has them arched over like that with the legs over the head.
Wow.
But he figured it out, and he came up with that, and I didn't really do him any favors with this one.
Oh my God. It's
I got better as we went along though. After that, I really upped my game because I felt bad about that one.
Nice. Oh yeah. Regardless of that too, like I mean, I know you guys wanted to stick to be true to the source material, that the world of wrestling and everything. But I wonder, it's like how many fly by night fans really know those moves.
When I've trained in like different art, different combat arts like boxing. I've done some grappling, some of that kind of stuff. When I see something like They Live, right, I see like the jabs. I see like the knees that they're trying to land. I mean, everybody sees them, but like I see them from like a technical thing. And you don't have to know any of that stuff to like appreciate it. You know what I mean? I think it's so kinesthetic, and just the movements are so, I mean, they're really nasty movements, but the movements themselves are really athletic, and they're beautiful to watch. And I don't necessarily think that you have to know that. And plus the way Ross like sequenced everything, it's I think anybody would appreciate it who has any kind of interest in that.
Nice. Yeah, it's one of the fun things about these wrestlers is they embody that visual of the superhero, the mask and the tights and everything. I think it's an interesting you know uh, detour to really focus on the poverty of the issue of the situation, with these
Mhm.
characters. Yeah, you're right. Like these characters, like Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark, they're completely separated from that world. You know,
Right.
they can't. Most of the time they can't relate. If you go back and read some of those comics too, like some of the fights and the fallout of those situations just make this everybody's lives that much more worse. Were they actually to focus on those personal stories of people that have to live in the rubble of all
Yeah.
that shit. So I think this is a wonderful take. I myself, like I said, I haven't been able to read it. I came across the Kickstarter when it ended. It's like, damn it.
Oh, dude, no worries. I mean, there's a couple left. We'll have I don't I hope we get to do another run. I hope we get
Yeah.
to do another arc. People
Oh,
seem to like it. There seem to be some interest. Yeah, and I hope we get another printing of these. I'm
yeah.
sure we'll have something at some point. I'm not exactly. We're all. I think we're all kind of new to this. Ross crowdfunded, and he's actually doing another crowdfunding for a series called Stumped, which is
Yeah.
like a kaiju series that he's part of. But he's done that before,
Nice.
and he had some experience with that. But like, this was only his second one. It was the first time for Matt and I. So we didn't know what to expect, and I guess we're just kind of learning as we go along.
Yeah. Yeah. Initially, diving into something like Kickstarter, what lessons did you garner from, the crowdfunding?
Put the freaking phone down. And
Just,
don't be such a psycho like watching it like
yeah.
like there's an anxiety, man. Like
Yeah.
you learn just you learn to walk away, I guess. Like put the
Yeah.
freaking phone, because we got lucky. We got funded within like the first 4 days.
Oh my God. That's great. Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. So one of the guys that helped with the comic is a guy named Raul Ramirez
Mhm.
in Los Angeles, and uh, with pro wrestling, it evolved from something called catch as catch can wrestling, which
Okay.
was actually a sport. It was pro wrestling, and they had like submission holds and things like that, right?
Wow.
Eventually, it became pro wrestling. It became worked, where it was scripted,
Yeah.
and but there was a real art there, right? And you can still see a lot of the moves in like MMA and grappling.
Yeah.
There's even one called the Americana that the Brazilians named because of like American catch wrestlers like using that move all the time. So um, I don't remember where I was going with this, but yeah, yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the Kickstarter and those lessons
Oh yeah, yeah.
and we're talking about it segued into the moves and all that, but yeah, so yeah, the anxiety of the situation is a really big thing. So many creators, this is how they live nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And another thing too is like, especially during a Kickstarter, a crowdfunder, during a pandemic,
Yeah.
so many people are running into supply chain issues. Did you run into anything like that with the printing or paper or ink, any of that stuff?
No, we got lucky. It went smooth. That's what I wanted to tell you. I brought up Raul and the Catch Wrestling Alliance. I was on. I did his live stream when we got funded. Not, we were getting close, but I didn't really think it
Mhm.
was necessarily going to happen right then and there, and it did, man. But
That's cool.
yeah, just no. I didn't know what to expect with any of this. I knew it was all or nothing, and the nothing part is what's scary.
Yeah, it really is. The Yeah, it's you've got other platforms like Indiegogo that has the option of like, hey, do the best you can, and you get like the percentage of that, and then or you can option for the all or nothing, which then you're contractually obligated. It's that social contract between your audience that contributed and then yourself to to get, the quantities of the goods to the people and share your art and share your story. But it's also a wonderful platform in the sense of, it's direct to sale, right? You're creating your audience and you're following, and it's a great way to interact with them in some capacity, and completely avoiding like those distributors like Diamond and stuff, which can be that third middleman, shenanigans that can be very frustrating.
I've heard. I was pretty lucky too, because Matt, honestly, Matt did all the grunt work too, man. Matt did all. He had his hand in everything. Like he'd let me do what I wanted for the most part with writing, but he would always give prompts or suggestions that made it better, right? But then he would just be like, well, what about this? What if we try that? And then that was it. He's like, okay, have fun. And then I'd come back, and that was really great. But yeah, I'm curious to see what comes next with this. Like I said, I really hope we get to do it again,
Yeah. Do you guys have a follow-up story, already, or like an idea already to go?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a part towards the end that I wonder if I noticed it, but Matt really pointed it out to me, and that kind of triggered the next story.
Cool.
Yeah, there's one particular panel, and I want to say it's like the second to last or third to last page of the comic that like triggers the next story. Okay,
nice. So just for everybody out there that already has your Milagro, book, cue into that second or third to last page, to really, hopefully set yourself up for the next installment. I think that's going to be pretty exciting, because you're also, creating a whole universe, and you have, some amazing social commentary too, that creates this world and makes it feel so real. That I think that's, something like living in poverty is such a real world, horrifying situation. It's amazing to see how people cope and deal with it, and it's also just heartbreaking too.
One of the things in the story that plays a big part, believe it or not, is community gardening. And one of the main characters is primarily a gardener.
Okay.
Who's actually really good with bladed weapons. but yeah, that was a big part. Also, are you familiar with a genre called solar punk?
No, I don't think I am. I guess I'm not.
Some people call it eco-punk or biopunk or whatever, but it's like almost like the opposite of dystopian fiction. Like, what if like nature was like in, reusable energy and just natural cycles of nature and natural vegetation, all that stuff was integrated with technology, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And there's even the very last page of Milagro is a tribute to that, because you think of like cyberpunk and all that kind of stuff. It's dystopian. It's just really gloomy, and it feels like we're kind of living in that now in a lot of ways. And it's very Black Mirror and just really grim, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of grim, nasty things that happen in this story, but there has to be some degree of hope. Otherwise, why would you even bother?
Right. I think that's brilliant. That's one of the things that like these days I've talked to a number of creators. It's like, you can still tell deep, stories, but with an air of optimism. It doesn't always have to be like this dystopian, as you put it, way about it. It doesn't always have to be the Matrix, where we're always waking up from the freaking machines and only to find out we're still fucked,
Right.
Or play itself out to be the Mad Max, wasteland, or something even worse, like maybe Kevin Smith's Red State or something like that. Ooh. Yeah.
But it's just It's been a really rough couple of years for all of us. You
Yeah.
know, most people I know, somebody I know got really sick or died, or somebody knows got really sick or died.
Yeah.
Out here in Colorado, it seems like we periodically have these terrible shootings. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we just had the Marshall Fire, right, which is a direct result of climate change.
Yeah.
And like they think might have been started from an underground coal mine. I mean, that's dystopian as hell, man. That is
That's freaky.
material reality as we know it. But we have to believe that if we just try hard enough, maybe we can get out of it.
Right.
Or at least like get through it. If not,
Right. And with the fires too, like, you know, you mentioned that you and your wife are so close to that.
yeah,
You know, yeah, yeah, that's pretty intense. When
yeah,
I look around too, like, yeah, I'm surrounded by nothing but dry grass. I'm like, crap. If it can happen out there, you know, it's very likely it could happen here. So
yeah.
yeah, people have got to be pretty wary of, you know, what they're doing and their surroundings, because shit can go down at any moment. It seems like.
Yeah. One of the things that's nice about solar punk too,
Yeah.
it at least imagines solutions, if
Right.
not necessarily has them. And I feel like a lot of these things we either already have or on the cusp of having if we just put energy and just stop worrying about making money off of it.
Right.
You know, like if we treated this like World War II, where, you know, we had to get all the assembly lines to like make weapons because we were going to get attacked by Nazis or whatever, you know, like if we treated it like that, then I'm sure we would come up with something, you know. And
Right.
that's not really spelled out so much in the story, but there's elements of that kind of attitude, that kind of belief, that kind of connection to the land. And I try not to be didactic with this stuff.
Mhm.
I don't want to preach about it. I'm probably doing too much of it now, but I really did try not to do it in the comic.
Yeah. No, it's you're talking about like solar punk and the whole which is all that kind of branches off of like the steampunk ethos, but also you think about like punk rock, you know, going off, you know, carving out your own existence and living by some punk rock DIY ethos. I think that also plays into it because it's like, hey, you got to look out for yourself and your community, and what a greater way than kind of expanding outside of like a family that might have rejected you or a society that might have rejected you, but finding your own with these misfits and alleged rejects, but in different creative paths that garner real solutions. I think and I know I'm deterring a little bit, but um, yeah, I think like punk rock is that way. Subcultures like steampunk, solar punk is you're talking about. Yeah, I think these are amazing groups of people that kind of identify in these like subgenres that can really help bring about community and solutions.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I imagine that again, it's just hinted at really quick and probably nobody will really catch on, but in my mind, like there's a community training center there. You
Mm,
know, the people there can alternate between gardening and like training. You
nice.
know, training to be a wrestler or like a combat athlete or something. You know,
Yeah.
or like well, there's more to it than that, I guess. But
Right.
there's elements of community is a big part of it. Family is a big part of the story too, and probably the biggest thing is just redemption.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. This is a wonderful image too. There's, I mean, plucking the rose, and then you've got clearly blood and sweat and tears in that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Ross, if you're out there, we friggin' love your art, buddy.
Oh yeah, Ross, thank you, man. You did such a great job, dude.
Yeah, you know, these characters too. I mean, it really feels like it, you know, this could be animation. Yeah, and that's another thing too. Like today, you've got so many animated and superhero stories that are like really dark and bleak, like Invincible or The Boys or something. And you know, the way you're talking about like that hint of optimism, even you know, in the wake of so much violence and stuff, and you know, in real world horror. Yeah, I wish we had you know a little bit more of that sense of optimism.
You don't want to put too much cheese on the taco, but you definitely want to have that little pea drip of optimism.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. Well, that's what is that? The cilantro?
The cilantro and the dystopia, right?
Yeah, yeah. God, yeah. I really do. Yeah, yeah. His action and oh man, look at those lines.
I know, man. The action. I'm telling you, man. He was open to so like there were things that I'd send him like a video essay on manga,
Wow.
um, and even like those old fighting manuals. A lot of them were
Yeah,
illustrated. They were just like black
yeah,
and white but they were really good black and white drawings back then.
yeah,
Like whoever the hell they hired to do that were like or do those were like real serious artists.
yeah.
Jack Dempsey, the Manasseh Mauler, he
Ooh.
was one of the first sports stars in America. It was like him and Babe Ruth in like 1920 or whatever, right?
Mhm.
He was from Colorado, Manasseh, Colorado, and he wrote a book on fighting. And it's out of print. If you can find a print copy, I think they're like $300 or something. You
Yeah,
can find the PDF online. It's like you look at the freaking just the quality of it. Even like the way that he wrote, his writing is good, or at least his ghostwriter's writing is good.
yeah,
But whoever wrote that thing did a really good job. Like again, you don't have to be that much into boxing to appreciate it, you know?
yeah, yeah. It's kind of a you know an art form unto itself. Yeah, and you know wrestling. Uh, you know is so you know ingrained in American culture as well as you know Mexican cultures. You know, Ah, didn't didn't like the style of wrestling that we're so used to now
Mhm.
didn't really have its roots in you know the Mexican you know kind of you know luchador you know kind of wrestling.
The pro wrestling, you mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of the theatrical, the more
yeah,
theatrical
yeah,
stuff. Absolutely. The lucha libre tends to be a lot more acrobatic.
right.
In my like in pro wrestling in Japan, they have what's called stiff style, that like really like real looking, like the punches look like they're really hitting,
Yeah,
and sometimes they are.
yeah.
But yeah, in this world, I kind of just copied what happened in Japan. Just
Mm,
like there's this branch of lucha libre that blends that style. There's definitely like the high flying stuff, like the
right.
suplex, and
Yeah,
there's the death in the ring is pretty gruesome and pretty high flying as well. So we tried to combine all of those elements in this like fictionalized world and this like fictionalized style of fighting and performance art.
nice. Yeah, yeah. Creating a comic book like this too, like yeah, this is a fantastic device for storytelling. You know, uh, as cinematic as you know comics you know tend to be, um, it's one of those you know platforms and mediums that you know you don't have to involve a lot of people.
Right.
You know, was it you know pretty uh, you know pretty refreshing or you know or maybe it was very painstaking. You know, it's like you know working with you know such a small group of people.
You know what, man? It was a lot of fun and it was really easy. Matt is such an easy guy to.
Yeah.
Matt is an easy guy to. You've done some work with Matt, I think.
Yeah, he's colored a few things for me, and you know it's yeah he's kind of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he can. The guy's a really good leader. Like he pulled
Yeah,
Ross and I together. I'd never met Ross before, before this, and he knows how to delegate. He knows when to give what and how much.
mm,
And then he just, I guess part of that is just knowing who to trust something like this with.
right.
I guess he trusted Ross and I, and he just let us go. He tell us what we needed. He was like the overseer of the story. he could see every aspect of it, like the words, you know, the plot points, the images, the color. Like he saw everything and was able to put it all together and to get us to work as like a cohesive unit.
Nice.
It was really easy. It was really painless and a lot of fun. And I really, really hope we get to do it again soon.
That's cool. Outside of Milagro, do you have any other projects on the burner?
I'm gonna be doing like a short cartoon series with my friend Bernard at some point.
Cool.
I'm working on there's a magazine that just came out called Solar Punk Magazine.
Oh, nice.
I gotta try to see if I can get into. I'm gonna try to submit some stuff that I'm working on now. That's what I'm focused. But you know, the minute if Matt gives the call for more Milagro, I mean, the minute he's like, okay, let's do it again, the world stops.
Yeah.
I start working on Milagro. I'm going at it a little bit. I have a pretty detailed outlining process that I go through. You know, a lot of it is like trying to figure out, why are we doing this? Like, what is the purpose? Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to say? How do you want people to react, respond? How do you want them to feel?
Yeah.
What is the main theme? What is the premise behind all of this, right?
Yeah.
I take a lot of time doing that because, like, whenever somebody says something's good, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? A lot of times I think it means that it has like a higher meaning. Like, you know, like Star Wars isn't just, you know, space wizards with laser swords and like princesses with like ray guns or whatever and space smugglers, right? You know, it's about rebellion, and you know, we're finding out that freaking Lucas inspired the rebels, was inspired by like the Viet Cong or whatever, you know, all these crazy things that have come up. Princess Leia, the hair buns were Mexican revolutionary women wore their hair like that.
Oh, okay. Now that's something I did not know.
That's something that we directly do in Milagro at some point.
Nice. Cool.
That goes back. There's a tradition of just, you know, you think about, I myself am not Mexican, full disclosure. I'm South American. You know, my dad's from Chile, my mom's from Peru. I grew up in the East Coast. I didn't know Mexicans or much about Mexican culture until I moved out to Colorado.
Oh,
and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people, the food.
Yeah.
Just combat sports. Like, you say Mexican boxer, and there's all this line of great fighters just plays in your head. You know, you think of lucha libre, you think of just like the culture.
Yeah.
You know, and everything that they've contributed just to regular culture, and
Yep.
you kind of just fall in love with it, you know. And I wanted to do something that honored that and honored like family. I think like the concept of family is like something really important for all Latin Americans, you know, for all Latinos in general. Like, we have a reputation for that, you know. You know, we're touchy-feely and loud and all that stuff. Well, not always loud, but you know what I mean. Like, and that's like a big thing. And that was something that was important to get through there too.
Yeah.
And we have our family traumas too. You know, we have, we all have our crosses to bear.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like such a, you know, Milagro sounds, you know, very personal. I really like the aspect too of how you approach writing. You know, sitting there, you know, figuring out those questions of, you know, what do I want to communicate to my audience, and then, you know, what are they going to get out of it? You know, do you find that is it the same things that you want to get out of it?
I don't know. I hope so. So far, the feedback has been positive.
Yeah.
I try not to worry too much about it. Like, I trust Matt, like, a lot. Matt and I really know each other by now. Like, like even just through our work.
Yeah.
You know, like what we choose to focus on with our work. Matt does some great projects outside of Milagro. You know, he's done a lot to help like independent progressive media, you know, with art and calendars and all these things that he's done. You know, that's something that's really important to him and meaningful, and he's done his part to contribute to that little subculture. That's its own subculture, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that is really important, just to inject as much of yourself and as much meaning as you can into the story. There's a part of me that loves to train when I actually get off the couch to do it, and there's the love of training that's built into there. Like I'm just slowly starting to get more into gardening because of the solar punk thing.
Cool.
And there's elements of that, like all these personal things. The female characters are based on my wife, my mother, one of my best friends. Like, yeah. So like, you just put as much of that as you possibly can.
Nice. Oh, that's wonderful. The when completing a project like that, and then doing the Kickstarter and getting the feedback, do you find that even after all that, the creative process is still going on, is kind of like that living conversation?
Right. Yeah. One thing that I'm starting just to find out, and just in the little bit of work that I've done so far, whether it's been like a comic, I basically just done comics, short stories. I made like a short film.
Oh, cool. Oh, I think you and I talked about that at Melvin's.
Yeah. I made a short film years ago. But like, you start to find out that there's certain things that matter to you that you want to say with this stuff.
Yeah.
I think that just comes out, even if it's like, I love Frank Zappa, right? And on the one hand, the guy was like a virtuoso classical composer disguised as a rock guy, right? On the other guy, he was like a total goofball.
Yeah.
And being a goofball was just as important to him as like being like this avant-garde classical electric dude, So eventually you're going to show who you are in your work. It's going to come out.
Yeah.
And I think it's good just to embrace that and don't run from it. Just embrace it and don't get too caught up in like trying to preach some kind of message, but just embrace it and try to tell the best story that you can with it,
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Do you find when you're like sitting there too, writing out your outline, do you adhere to some type of story structure, or are you just like, well, let's just see how this thing kind of evolves organically? I mean, you mentioned you outlined, so you've already got a bit of a footprint of where you want to go.
Yeah. There's two ways I really use an outline. Mm-hmm. If I'm not sure where I want to go and I want to brainstorm, I'll start with like the biggest thing for me is premise.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like your thesis. Like, what is the story pointing to, right? Like Romeo and Juliet, true love survives even death. Everything kind of pointed in that direction to where one died and then they couldn't be apart, and then the other died and nothing could keep them apart, right? So coming up with a strong premise, like putting that in, 9 words or less or whatever, like a game, right? Gamify it as much as you can. Then coming up with like why you're writing it, and then just coming up with the different beats. I put together 2 different narrative structures that I liked. One was like a screenwriting one, like how to write a screenplay in 21 days.
Okay.
But there's actually a book on this, but I don't even have the book. I got it out of another book that had a chapter that they took from that book. A guy named Dove S.S. Simon it was like an independent filmmaking movie, and he had like this chapter, how to write a script in 21 days.
Nice.
I really like it. Like, it was a really like good thing, and it was pretty realistic. So I used that. And then the one that works really well for me for short stories and comics, or even like this is a graphic novel, but each chapter, like when we first started doing this, before we were going to kickstart it, we were going to try to do like, regular comic issues, right? 22 pages. And but this one, we just took like the first arc, the first 3 issues, and just put them together as a graphic novel.
Cool.
But what works for me really well, how well remains to be seen. But what I've been using is that 21-day, how to write a screenplay in 21 days, and freaking Dan Harmon's story circle.
Right. That's such a wonderful tool.
Oh, I love it. Like, with just 8 basic beats, right?
Yep.
and the symmetry behind, like, you know, tying like the different points of the circle together.
Yeah.
You can get a lot of and it's like the hero's journey, or like say the cat's like 15 different, you know, points or whatever, and the hero's journey I think is like 12. This is 8. It's totally doable, you know, and just having like those different turning points and those different things just within the story helps it, like with the pacing, just helps it keep going, helps it make some sense.
Right.
Having a guy like Matt to read it and making sure that you're not being a dummy and forgetting like key things helps too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I use that 21 days, how to write a screenplay in 21 days, the hero's journey, and then just like this own thing. My own thing that I came up with, like theme, premise, all that stuff.
Cool, man. That sounds awesome. It sounds like you know, yeah, you should be doing this full time. But I know, you know, so many of us creatives gotta have the day job.
I got wife, I got kids, I got 2 cats.
The
I
cats are
bills.
heavy.
We live in Colorado. It's gentrified as hell.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, of course, of course, I hope somebody, I hope somebody at freaking Dark Horse or wherever reads it and wants us to do more. And I hope, yeah, of course, I hope people like the story and the way it's written and everything, you know, absolutely. I would love that. Well, you know, right now we're lucky that we were able to do this. Like, I just remember those first couple days, you know, seeing it go up and like, wow, is this really going to get funded?
Yeah.
Man, I just want to do another one. You know, I have some pretty wild, I have ideas already for the 3rd arc.
Cool. That's awesome.
I actually came up with what I think is going to be the 3rd arc right after this one, but I thought it was a bit much, and I wanted to come up with like a bridge between what happens here and really earn what I want to do in that 3rd arc, like really let it pay off.
That's so cool. You know, we're just about ready to start winding down, but Mo, what are you reading today that really speaks to you?
So one of the things that really got to me when I was doing this, there's a lot of female characters, and like I said, I'm not Mexican. So one of the things that I wanted to do is to make sure that I got things right.
Yeah.
You know, like guys are notoriously bad for writing women.
Yeah.
And people of one culture don't always do a great job writing about another. Even though I am Latino, it's not the same culture.
Yeah. Right.
You know, Peruvians are totally different than like Puerto Ricans.
Yeah.
You know, and Chileans and Peruvians hated each other. You know, I'm lucky my parents met in Queens, but like, so it was important for me to read works by people from Mexico and as much as possible Mexico City. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the short stories. There was a female author named Guadalupe Natal.
Ooh.
I'll find the names of this, and then another one, Valerie Latrelli. Guadalupe, she wrote like essays mostly.
Okay.
They were great, you know, about Mexico City. But another guy that really got to me was a poet named Octavio Paz from Mexico City, and he's pretty wild.
Nice.
It's just like heart-achingly beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, believe it or not, just reading like old fight manuals for this in particular had really gotten to me. As far as comics, believe it or not, Ether, just because it was nothing like this. I just wanted something absolutely not like this.
Yeah, to like decompress from. Just yeah.
Yeah, I just, you know, like when I was playing in like punk rock bands or whatever, like I like to listen to a lot of jazz and John Coltrane in particular.
Yeah.
And like Electric Miles Davis, because to me it had the same energy, but it was like a completely different flavor.
Right.
You know, and it just kind of opened up like your palate. And
yeah,
for me, it's just kind of like I want to dip into a little bit of not a little. I want to dive into the world, but like there's things that I want to read. You know, I started reading The Invisibles again.
Cool.
when I was writing this.
Cool. Grant Morrison.
Absolutely nothing like this, So yeah, that was a lot of probably what I was reading. Also, like Ursula Le Guin, the sci-fi writer, I was reading a lot of her. Again, nothing like this,
Yeah.
But yeah, that pretty much got me through this.
Nice. That's awesome.
Not got me through it like in a bad way, but that's kind of what I was feeding my mind with at the time.
Yeah. And that's good. Yeah. The mind needs nourishment, and what better way than to read? And of course, I'll end with this: read banned books.
Yeah, Mouse, man.
Ooh, yes, very much so.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
banning and burning books is just not a good thing.
Nope. Historically, it never was.
Yeah. Even by Nazis, because it's good to know the enemy.
Well, even before then, burning like libraries of Alexandria and stuff.
Yeah.
So many forgotten histories and everything. Oof. So, and more contemporary Nazis. Fuck. Hey, Mo, it was great having you on here. It's so awesome to be able to reconnect with you and everything. For everybody who's tuning in, make sure to follow him on twitter.com/Milagro Comics. Where else can people find your works?
I was so unprepared for this. I don't have a website. I don't have anything. I'm really bad at this, and I need to learn how to do this better, like the whole marketing thing. If anybody's listening to this and can help out, please let me know if you can even find me.
Well, I can find you and I can point them in the right direction, but I think Twitter's a good spot to start with Milagro. Definitely check it out there. And you have limited supplies of the comic right now. It's selling beautifully. And I can't wait. Hopefully you'll be able to announce like a second printing or something.
Oh yeah, man. If you'll have me back, I would love to come back and announce if and when we get a chance to do it. I really hope we can. I mean, it was a great experience, man. It was a great experience. I'm lucky Matt chose me to do this,
That's so cool. It sounds like you have a beautiful working relationship, and I can't wait to see, new installments of the comic of Milagro, and I obviously I still need to read the first one.
Yeah, man, we'll make that happen somehow. No worries.
Sweet. All right. Mo, hang out for a few minutes while we sign off. But again, thanks for being so generous with your time and coming on and talking to us about the wonderful world that you and Matt and Ross created.
RossRadke.com, RossRadke.com. Our artist, he has some copies online too. I think I don't know how many he has left, but people seem to be responding pretty well. So definitely support Ross if you can. Also, if you like kaiju comics, he's doing Stomped, and he's going to have a Kickstarter within the next few days. So, if you dig his art, check him out with Stomped too. He's really something else, man.
Sweet. That's awesome. Cool. Everybody that tuned in, thanks so much for tuning in. And of course, want to say thank you to our friends at Mutiny Cafe. If you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated. And Hellfire Entertainment, thanks for rebroadcasting us on your social media. And Groovy TV. And of course, to our friends at Alien Donut Films, to Bill and Angela over there for putting up with my weird ass shit, and my producers, Stephen Santa Cruz and Amanda Armstrong. And for everybody out there, look out for each other, help each other out during these tough times, and remember, we love you. Stay spooky, everybody, and have a good night.